Now, Dr. Gates said later, he said, all my life I've been trying to approach people with racial tolerance. I've been trying to move people in that direction. So he has the resume that says, yes, that's true. But what happened during that time right there? So you forget about that because you start doing it familiar. I know what's going on here, and I'm going to meet what you got, bam, check. Checkmate. No, it's no checkmate because it's always going to be a loss. You're always going to lose when it's mano a mano. It's going to be a loss. It takes power to move the parameters. Now, here's where I want the church to understand that when you are dealing with people who feel like, I don't know if you know what I know, you know? When you're dealing with people who are not quite sure about you, don't make the mistake of extrapolating, I know exactly how you feel. Let me tell you what happened to me. Because you lose them. Because the folks are saying, your story is not my story. You don't know what I had to learn, what I had to go through in order to learn this lesson. This may have been something that happened to you because your hair was long. And you cut your hair and it will never happen again. This happened to me because of my skin color, which will stay forever and ever, amen. So the issue that you always want to be sure when you're talking to people who are a little unsure about you is don't be so eager to convince them that you know, because that's not it. What has to happen, church, and you who know about this in crucial, courageous conversations, you must listen. You must listen. There was a book written back in the 60s, and I was at TU. The book was written by co-authors, Price and Greer. Price Cobb, William Greer, I believe. And the book was entitled, Black Rage. Black Rage came out and, you know, it was shorthand. You know, black folks would be finally being for real, not faux real, being for real. And so black folks would be saying it. And, you know, white folks would be stunned, shocked. And then the black folks would go, Black Rage, baby, Black Rage. So I was at TU then, and I had my Black Rage copy, you know. And I had a professor who was a graduate assistant, and she was introducing the class to all kinds of sociological themes. But she was just old enough that she was older than us, but she was not way. So she was like really going with what was going on, right? Now, it wasn't very many black folks over at TU in those days, and so I was the only one in my class. And she would give a lecture or talk about something, and she'd say, Gerald, tell us about Black Rage. And I would say, oh, because I hadn't found my voice yet, you know? I was still operating under the assumption, you get along, you know? Just make sure you get the grades, make sure you don't get killed, you know? You know, that was, I mean, my dad would come to the football games when I was a drum major, and he would listen to people talking about that black guy, the only one in the band, who was leading the band, and he was doing his thing and stuff like that. My dad would stand up. He told me, I stood up and looked at him, glared at him, until they shut up. You know, so it was those times. It was those times. So, Gerald, tell us about Black Rage. And I couldn't say anything. But times have changed, and people are now talking. But it's important for us not to get so caught up with, right on, brother, sister, I know what you're talking about, that we don't hear what folks are saying. We have to have the power to enlarge the parameter and listen to what is being articulated. Maybe what they're telling you is not just a story, but they're telling you about some pain that they need to get out. And if that pain comes out, maybe then they can listen. They can breathe. And this is not about maleness. Not about, well, I have a right to tell my story too. And he's going to have to listen to me first. We don't go anywhere, church, if we do that. We don't go anywhere. I'm saying to you, look at the big picture. Wherever you are right now in the crucial conversation, it's going somewhere if you allow it, if you broaden your scope. All right, so that's part of what I want to say this evening. I want you all to hear that. The other thing that I want you to understand, that when we're talking about crucial conversations about race, please understand there is no right answer. That's the thing I was trying to say about the Bible story. You know, people have taken that story and they've gone on with, you know, Jacob is Israel and Esau is all the other Arab countries. And so that's why they're fighting. You know, people have taken that story and extrapolated it so that, you know, that's the reason they're supposed to fight. It's supposed to be war. And that's crazy, you know, but that's what people do with narrow interpretations. We have to be broad enough to understand that it's not just one. There are many right answers. And we have to be the ones to lead the people into that promised land of thinking. You hear what I'm saying? This church has done the struggle. You're doing the struggle. Crucial conversations are coming up all the time. We cannot allow narrow parameters to define this church. This church cannot do that. Now, I will extrapolate on this because it's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope because this is what happens. Once you start being narrowly defined, then you start putting on things and accepting, okay, I guess we can accept social paranoia. Okay, yeah, social paranoia is okay. I guess you so. You know, you got to protect your own, you know, I guess we can. Hey, you know what? I think we can accept, you know, apocalyptic militarism. You know, oh yeah, because, you know, you're going to push people to the brink because either they're going to be on our side or they're not. You know, and if they're not on our side, blow them away. Waterboarding's okay, you know. If it's going to get the truth, yeah. See what happens if you start down religious bigotry? Oh, yeah, that's acceptable because, you know, hey, okay, I'm going to be for real, all right? Not for real, I'm going to be for real. I'm standing outside after one of these services, and I didn't preach. I was just there. And people are shaking my hand, and I'm saying, hello, I'm glad you're here. This lady runs up to me and says, do you believe Jesus is the only source to tear away darkness and defeat darkness? That was it. Do you believe Jesus is the only source that can defeat darkness? And I said, you said only. And she said, that's right. I want a yes or no answer. And I said, well, you said only. I said, I want a yes or no answer. And I said, I can't go with only. You know, I can't go only. You know, there's a collaboration. I tried to get into my, okay, that's enough.